This is the Canadian Mental Health Voters League podcast. I'm Dan Woods. Thanks for clicking and listening to what I hope will be an effective piece of strategic advice our mental health community should consider in growing our cause. Now, you can take this advice, you can ignore it, you can do what you want with it. But in the long run, I think it'll change the face of how appealing mental health is as a cause. That piece of advice is this: stigma is a part of our cause, not the cause. Now, what do I mean by this? I mean our fight should be against mental illness itself as a treatable and preventable yet inevitable part of life, not solely against stigma or discrimination. Fighting stigma is different than fighting mental illness. Expressing the fact that you're offended by the word crazy being used in a pejorative sense is not the only effective way of advancing the mental health cause. The Sick Not Weak campaign, the work of Michael Landsberg and countless others in breaking down misconceptions that surround different forms of mental health problems are extremely important. They acknowledge and create, a broader awareness of the intense struggle that people work through every day. And they're a very important factor in our cause, but they should be a segment of a larger plan on our part. I personally understand the fact that stigma makes the already difficult struggle of poor mental health even harder. But there is a very practical reason for making stigma a part of a larger strategy to grow the mental health cause. There are essentially two basic types of arguments for raising funding levels contributed to mental health. The first is, X number of Canadians kill themselves every day. Therefore, we need to increase funding for this or for that. It's a quality of life, humanitarian, and I think more impactful short-term argument. The second argument goes something like, depression will be the leading cause of workplace absence and disability claims and will cost Canadians X number of $1 million every month. The second is a more pragmatic, it's a more economic, and potentially broader reaching argument. Now, these are both very different reasons to support better mental health care funding. They are, related and connected in many ways, but they are different. Mental health spending is an investment. And I think we need to do a better part of explaining this. People who have been through serious depression and come out the other side, or overcome alcoholism or opioid addiction, or been through a psychotic episode, earn a perspective. They earn valuable insight and inner drive that is, and I truly believe this, more powerful and more valuable to our economy than any oil well or carbon tax, that we will drum up. I believe in the potential of transformed lives. I think we should be focused on transforming lives and the value that this means to us. The lived experience of mental health struggle and the resilience it produces should be incorporated into our arguments for mental health spending. The amount of tax revenue generated from such individuals, the amount of brilliant artistic works or innovation that spreads from their minds, the sheer amount of resilience that they have built up is something that is beyond monetary measurement right now. If we work on bringing people through a mental health crisis to see the other side, stigmatization and discrimination, they don't stand a chance. The net benefit to society from people who have been through the war of their own mind is very hard to calculate. And by this I mean it's far greater than any budgetary argument against it, any economic argument against it. These two arguments, the one that mental health funding saves lives today and hits everyone's pocketbook, are intertwined. Stigma is not the war. It's a battle in a larger war against mental health problems. Both of these arguments are essential because people, unfortunately, are more selfish than I think we're ready to admit. If you've been depressed or psychotic or anything else that can be, treated or prevented, you understand the importance of mental health funding. If you've lost a spouse or a child to suicide, you're already in the know with mental health funding. You do not need to be convinced. People who understand the negative impacts of stigma and discrimination are on board already. We are the foundation of the mental health community. We need to bring more people on board and incorporate them into this base. The challenge lies in convincing people who haven't suffered because of their own mental health challenges or suffered personally because of a loved one's mental health problems. These are the people we need to bring aboard. And the economic argument that portrays mental health funding as an investment is the most plausible way of giving them a stake in gaining widespread support for increased funding. I think this is why so much pushback and hesitation people have towards things like climate change initiatives or global humanitarian causes, because they feel like they don't have a stake in making progress on these issues. I think if we were to accurately and emotionally, describe the amount of economic impact or the positive impact to their lives there are in these causes, I think it would really help break down some barriers they may have. And I think in mental health funding, it's the same way. We need to convince people who aren't already a part of this that they have something to gain, and we as a country have something to gain in increasing mental health funding. We need to portray it as an investment that will have returns in their lives. People who understand the negative impacts of stigma and discrimination are on board already. They are the foundation of our community. So I think going back to the beginning, expressing the fact that you're offended by the word crazy being used as a way of putting somebody down. And this is a valid expression of something that is offensive, and it shows that somebody is probably unaware of the actual severity of the fact that poor mental health ruins and ends lives. But they may not understand that. So let's bring them into the fold by showing them that they've got something to gain here. The current level of mental health care in Canada is not helping the issue of stigmatization and discrimination, because we as a country have yet to see the fruits of a system that generates consistently positive results. Making people who aren't already on our side feel like that they have a stake in this debate I think is going to be a much more effective and another tool that we can use to bring people into our growing cause. So, thanks for listening, guys. Please go to CMHVL.CA and join us. Follow us on Twitter. Join our Facebook group. And to those who already have, thank you so much for showing your support. It really goes a long way. Thanks for listening, and I look forward to the next podcast.